Greetings, B-movie aficionados.
Hello, welcome to Couple of Flicks. I'm Tristan.
I'm Nick.
And I'm Zach.
And with this, we are continuing to discuss the films on the IMDb bottom 100 list. And today we will be discussing Speed 2 Cruise Control, directed by Jean Dubin, which it was made in 1996 or 1997. I forget which year. It stars Jason Patric and Sandra Bullock and Willem Dafoe. So
Yeah, Dafoe.
yeah. So first of all, before we talk about this movie, I'm just gonna guess you guys have seen the first Speed, right?
Yep.
It's been a while, like
Okay.
decades. I was
okay.
a teenager when I saw it, high school, maybe even younger. No, probably high school, yeah. So like 15 years at least.
Nice. All right. What do you remember about it?
They're on a bus that can't go under 55 miles an hour or they'll explode. And Sandra Bullock is on it. And
Yeah.
Keanu Reeves is on it.
Okay.
And that's about it.
All right. And Zach, you've seen it, right?
Yeah.
All right, cool. All right. Yeah. Speed, I've seen more times than I can count.
Yeah, I've seen it a couple times for sure back then. Yeah.
And I did rewatch it before I watched Speed 2. Just because I don't know. I like doing that. I don't know. I like to rewatch like whatever.
I should have, because
like
I have questions.
Oh, you do? Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I should have watched
it's understandable. It's understandable why you would have questions, because there are movie does kind of leave you wondering a lot of things. So, but all right. So should we just kind of go over? Oh yeah.
Okay, so no. Okay, yes. Let's go over the main plot then. I guess. Yeah. Whatever you were gonna go for, do it.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So I guess let's go. Well, okay. Just to quickly summarize the first movie, I guess. Just
okay. Yes, that's what
to kind of make things a little easier.
Yeah.
So basically, just to quickly summarize, Speed 1 is about a mad bomber who played by Dennis Hopper, who within the first 2 minutes of the movie, he set up a bomb on an elevator, and the elevator is full of innocent people, and of course the people on the elevator, the cables explode, and it becomes this situation where the elevator is going to collapse and everybody in the shaft is going to die. So this SWAT team that has Jeff Daniels and Keanu Reeves in it, they are called to this building to rescue these people from this elevator, which after a series of really insane sort of stunts pulled off by the Keanu Reeves character, they managed to rescue everybody on board, and through the process of getting rescued, they end up having to do battle with Dennis Hopper, who takes the Jeff Daniels character hostage. So Keanu Reeves, and so because of the whole hostage situation and the way it goes, they fail to catch Dennis Hopper, and it appears as though he blows himself up. So that's how the movie begins. So Keanu Reeves and Jeff Daniels get their, these Medal of Honor things, and
I forgot Jeff Daniels was even in it.
yeah, he's one of the main characters. He's kind of Keanu Reeves' sort of best friend sidekick. Even though Keanu Reeves ends up shooting him at the beginning of the movie, but although it makes sense when you're watching the movie, because he does it in an attempt to dissuade Dennis Hopper from essentially winning. It's basic. So the first Speed movie it's basically a battle of wits between who can be more insane, Dennis Hopper or Keanu Reeves. And so Keanu Reeves continues throughout the rest of the movie to do these death-defying stunts. And what ends up ultimately happening is Dennis Hopper, he wants revenge against Keanu Reeves because he totally messed up his bomb plan. So he sets a bomb on a bus that once it goes above the speed limit of 50 miles an hour, the bomb gets
it?
once it goes above the once it goes above the speed limit of 50 miles an hour, the bomb immediately gets armed automatically. And then if it drops below 50, the bomb blows up. So that's what happens.
Yes,
so it's really suspense. It's actually almost Hitchcockian in my opinion, because there's this extended chase scene where he's trying to catch up to this particular bus in an attempt to try and slow it down, to try to keep it from going above 50. But unfortunately, he gets to it too late. The bomb ends up getting armed. He manages to intercept the bus after pointing a gun at an innocent person who's driving a fancy fast car, and having him catch up to the bus, and he ends up leaping onto the bus and getting aboard. And so then once he's on the bus, the film, it's just like one disaster after another.
That's how he got on? I thought doesn't somebody like get on from underneath? So I thought that was the movie. Like
that does happen, but later. So basically, well, sort of. So he gets on the bus, and then it's just one horrible incident after another. It turns out that there's a crook that's on the bus who's armed, and after a scuffle, the person who's driving the bus ends up getting shot and injured, which of course means that he's unable to operate the bus anymore. And so Sandra Bullock, who is a horrible driver.
Okay, so this is
basically she. Oh yeah.
This was one of my questions I had was because I don't remember. I thought Sandra Bullock was one of the cops as well.
Oh, okay.
So
all
she
right.
isn't?
Well,
was she just like a person on the bus?
Yeah, she's just an innocent passenger.
Because that makes sense at the beginning of Speed 2, because I was like, this lady's an idiot.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like a series of really, really bad like situations, and she has to act fast, so she ends up having to get into the passenger or into the driver's seat. Keanu Reeves is like, can you keep this bus above 50? Yes or no? And she's like, yes, I can. And then he finds out that she lost her license, and he asks why, and she says, oh, I lost my license for speeding. And so it's like, oh, okay, good. So we're good then. So then
yeah, there's a lot of I didn't remember that.
Yeah. So then, Dennis Hopper, of course, it's actually kind of an interesting movie, the way it talks about like the way it shows the Dennis Hopper character sort of being in control of this situation, because he's basically following. Like the reason he's able to actually keep tabs of this bus is because he has a camera on the bus, and he also has. There's also like the news helicopters that are circling the bus, which means that he can tell if somebody's trying to get off it. And so that ends up resulting in at some point they do have to get the bus driver off of the bus, and one of the passengers who's on the bus, she's an older lady. She ends up having a panic attack and trying to get off the bus. And follow the bus driver off the bus, because they do manage to get a SWAT team to lift the driver off the bus. So she tries to get off the bus too. Dennis Hopper blows up the stairs, kills her. She gets totally, demolished, and she dies. So an innocent passenger ends up getting killed throughout this, series of events. Then Keanu Reeves ends up trying to get under the bus in order to try and disarm the bomb. But in an attempt to disarm the bomb, he ends up actually damn it. Oh, well, before that, they end up jumping a bridge, which is the only part of the movie I don't like, because that's friggin' impossible, but whatever. Anyway, he ends up getting under the bus, and in the process of attempting to disarm the bomb, he ends up accidentally damaging what's holding the gas, which means that they start running out of gas. So yeah, so it basically eventually they manage to get the passengers off the bus. Once they find out that there's a surveillance system going on, they hijack the video feed, and the way they're able to actually find out that there's a surveillance system is because Jeff Daniels actually attempts to find Dennis Hopper and take him down, and he finds the location that the signal is coming from, but then turns out that it's a dummy, and he gets led to a location where there's another bomb, and then Jeff Daniels ends up getting blown up and dies. Which, yeah, so now it's like, now it's really on. Now the stakes are raised because Keanu Reeves is like, you killed my best friend, I'm gonna rip your fucking head off, you know. So then eventually, you know, they are able to intercept the feed and keep it on a loop so that he's oblivious to what's going on, and so they're able to secretly get all the passengers off the bus. So then he eventually discovers, you know, what's going on. He chases them down to the subway, you know, after trying to get because they do offer like a bag of like dummy money, which ends up exploding and ruining because he is trying to get money out of it. Basically, you do find that out eventually because he's a retired cop who's frustrated that he got, you know, mistreated and got like a low pension for his efforts. So he's basically gone. He's a disgruntled cop who's gone insane.
Mm-hmm.
And then the movie, it ends in this really intense climax where they're on a subway train. Dennis Hopper ends up getting decapitated, and then Keanu Reeves
And they're off the bus
Sandra,
at this point. Then
they're off the bus and they're on a subway train. Keanu Reeves ends up rescuing Sandra Bullock, and then the subway train smashes through the city line, and they're, you know, embracing, and then she says, "Oh, I heard that relationships that start under extreme circumstances they never last." And he's like, "Oh well," and they kiss, and the movie ends. So that's Speed One.
mm-hmm.
So that
bringing
brings
everyone
us
up to speed.
Right.
Oh yeah, of course. So that brings us to Speed 2.
Cruise control.
Yeah, cruise control.
How can they up the stakes from a bus? I know, a fucking cruise ship. One of the slowest fucking vehicles on Earth.
Well, Jean Dubont, I guess, thought it was a good idea.
How?
Well, I don't know, but apparently this movie actually had a bigger budget than the first one, so go figure.
I could see that. There was a bunch of stupid CGI.
Oh, yeah. 160 million was the budget.
Yeah,
Fuck.
unbelievable. And you know, so I didn't rent this movie. I watched it on a tape, on a VHS tape that my dad recorded this movie off of HBO, like probably about like 10 or 15 years ago, or maybe even 20 years ago. It was a long time ago when he taped it. And on the tape, after the movie, there's also a making of. And I watched that too. And so they showed how they did all the stuff at the climax, and I gotta say, man, they put a lot of effort into this one, you know, and it actually is kind of tragic, really, when I think about it. But anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. So, do you want to read the plot summary, or?
Sure.
Okay, cool.
So Alex Shaw is on a motorcycle chasing a vehicle with stolen goods. After
Okay.
Yeah.
Hold on.
This is my other question. This is my second question. I had two questions. That was the Sandra Bullock. Was she a cop or just a bystander? Second one, is this guy supposed to be Keanu Reeves? Or just a...
No.
Okay. It wasn't a recast?
It wasn't a recast. It would have made more
fuck?
sense for them to just have the Keanu Reeves character be in this movie, in my opinion.
I thought it was. That's what I thought the entire time. I was like, this has to be a recast.
Yeah. It would have made perfect sense for them to have done that, but instead what they did, in order to explain the fact that Keanu Reeves isn't in this movie, they decide to write out his character.
And with like one throwaway line.
Yeah. Sandra Bullock says that he was too crazy. Obviously, you see the first movie, he's fucking insane. He's more crazy than Dennis Hopper is. But basically the reason she breaks up with him is because he bought her mace and she thought it was perfume.
Oh, that's what that was? I remember that line. That was Keith. Oh, what the fuck? That's the fucking stupidest thing I've ever heard.
And man, I would have loved to have seen that.
Right. And this movie felt a lot more sillier than I remember Speed. Was that true or not?
The first Speed movie, the first Speed has a dark sense of humor, but for the most part, it's a deadly serious movie. It's very intense.
This one was a bit goofy all throughout.
Yeah, well, you mentioned I'm sorry for interrupting you, by the
No,
way,
you're
Zach.
fine.
But you mentioned that the movie begins with an ice cream truck with stolen computer parts. The main character is chasing down, and right away I got to say that's not as good as a bunch of innocent people stuck in an elevator. Like,
Yeah.
so right away this is a weaker movie, like from scene one.
Yep.
Oh well. Anyway, go
Wasn't
on.
no scene one was
Oh, wait.
her trying to get her driver license with
Yeah.
that one actor guy that I know I don't know where
Yeah.
from, but she failed.
Yeah. But okay, yeah. So go ahead.
After he catches the driver of the vehicle, his girlfriend Annie runs into him during her driver's test. She finds out that Alex is on the SWAT team after he lied and told her he was a beach officer.
No. Okay.
I don't know how you
Yeah.
lie about something like that, but okay.
Or why?
Yeah, she thought he was in Venice. She thought that he had traveled to Venice to survey the beach.
Yeah.
Whatever that means.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh well.
as an apology, Alex surprises her with a Caribbean cruise on Seaborn Legend.
Mm-hmm.
Another goddamn boat movie.
Yeah.
Which apparently is an actual ship.
Oh yeah. And UB40s were performing on it too, which is actually that's pretty cool. You know, it's
I wondered
interesting
if
that
they were a band. They sounded like they gave them a little shot, so I figured they were someone legit instead of just like a background band.
as soon as they showed up, I was like, oh sweet, the UB40s. But then they kind of just disappear from the rest of the movie, which I was really disappointed by. But oh well.
They were probably
mean,
half the budget. The
yeah.
music rights these days.
Yeah.
Aboard the ship, deranged passenger John Geiger, who is Willem Dafoe,
Mm.
a former cyber employee of the cruise company, which you don't find that out till a little later, but
Yeah.
Way later, I was like, "What is this guy and what is he doing?"
yeah.
Yeah. How does he know all this stuff?
Hacks into the ship's computer system,
The mainframe.
the mainframe.
The
Yeah.
mainframe. That's what I wrote down. He's hacking into the mainframe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another hacker movie.
Yeah. God damn it.
He destroys the ship's communication systems and kills Captain Pollard. Which I gotta mention his little setup there, his little golf. Everything's golf themed.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah. We should actually probably talk about that because the summary. I mean, the summary looks like it sounds like it's talking about pretty much all the important stuff. What it isn't talking about is all the unimportant stuff,
Yeah.
which of
That
course
took-
there's a lot of.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like it took like what I noticed and I thought was real fucking annoying is it took him like 30 like movie time. It was a long scene of him just I don't think we really needed to see all of him planning the bombs, setting the bombs up. He could have just done like one quick one and said, "Oh yeah, I set him up all over." Instead of like see him go to every location and put the wires in the little fake golf balls, like fucking
Yeah,
all
there-
that type of shit.
There was a lot of that.
It took so
And-
long.
And this movie was 2 hours long. It could have been so much shorter.
Oh yeah.
That's
Yeah.
that's my biggest problem with this
Like,
movie. Is
well,
yeah.
One of the ways is if they chose a faster vehicle.
Yeah,
Like
true.
the crash scene at the end was like them
Mm.
slowly going towards the crash. Like, oh no,
Yeah.
we have 2 hours until we crash.
Yeah. Well, but I was gonna say that's my biggest problem with this movie is that like for a plot that is this stupid, this movie is way too long.
Mhm.
it could have been a lot shorter. It could have been like tremendously shorter, and like in multiple ways. Like if there's so many different little insignificant moments that could have been totally like removed from this movie, like from the very beginning, and they could have kept plenty of the characterization still. But there was so much needless filler here. And so like unfortunately, like the movie it's really unfortunate because the plot is so dumb that it just doesn't feel really warranted to have a 2+ hour runtime, you know. So like at least like I think that at least 25 to 30 minutes could have been cut out of this movie easily.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But yeah, like there's this whole golf club setup where like Defoe is like, oh, have you seen my golf clubs or whatever, and then it's like some kind of thing, and then he like after he gets his golf clubs, he takes the tops off of them, and he's got these little like what do you call it, those little those chips or whatever that he was going to use to hack the system.
Yeah.
Oh, and then also like they it's also established, and it's not really an important thing ultimately, but it is established that the Alex character, I think that was his name, right? Yeah, that he gets seasick.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he was
So-
gonna propose.
Yeah, and then there's a whole little subplot of the deaf girl, which
That was creepy.
Yeah, who's the only
Yeah, that was a little creepy.
it was the only character I cared about in the entire movie, honestly. So
Yeah.
So once she eventually got rescued, spoiler, once she eventually gets rescued, I kind of just didn't really even care about what happened next, you know. But it's the whole thing with the girl who's deaf, like it starts off because like Sandra Bullock and Jason Patrick are having dinner, and you know, he catches on to the fact that this girl who keeps staring at him is deaf, so he starts doing sign language with her because I guess he mentions that he wanted to learn more than one language or something, which is how he knew sign language. So throughout the course of this movie, he's constantly communicating with this girl across the room, like in multiple scenes through sign language. And then it cuts to her parents, and her parents just basically treat her like crap the whole time. Like, it's just kind of like, what the heck?
And the thing is, though, like the reason why I said it was creepy too is like the first scene that he sees her across, it was like kind of like he's checking her out vibes. I was like, this is weird. And then later at the very end, she was like, "I love you." Oh, like I'm 14. He's like, "Wait till you're 15" or something like that. He said, and like,
Yeah, that was weird.
what the fuck, you creep?
Well, I mean,
it just had.
well, I gotta say.
Oh, he just said it had a little bit of like, you know, creepy vibes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think I also have to say, like Jason Patrick, by the way, I don't think they could have gotten a more pedestrian actor for this role. At least in my opinion. I don't have anything against Jason Patrick as an actor, but I don't really think he makes much of an action hero. He just doesn't really have a whole lot of physicality. There are occasional moments where he seems like kind of like a charismatic type of hero, but for the most part, he kind of just doesn't really. He kind of just does what's expected, and that's kind of just it. You know, so his interactions with the deaf girl are pretty much like the most character development that you get from him, and it's probably not the most positive type of character development that you can really have in a movie like this, but I'm going to assume that the director was probably just because from what I understand, the director, I think he's like French or something.
Oh,
He probably,
it was
yeah.
fucking French.
I mean, and I'm not insulting the French because, you know, French films have a long history of being like really high quality, and French cinema in particular is really well known for telling really good stories about children and actually exploring the lives of children in really honest ways. So I'm guessing that the director probably when he wrote this movie probably wrote her in the same way that he wrote like the other adult characters, and then just kind of didn't really think about the fact that she's like a minor and that Jason Patric is like kind of like, I mean, it's playful flirting, but it's still like not really like a way to behave. So, but he probably just wasn't really thinking about it that way. And I'm not gonna like judge him or anything like that. I'm just gonna assume that it was like like sort of a, what do you call it? Like a moment of naivete, you know, at least regarding like American culture, because there is a huge difference between the way like American films and French films depict children. So that's my guess, you know. But anyway, what else happened? There was one other thing. I don't remember. Oh, when he kills the captain, the punchline that he gives didn't really make sense, because he said something about like, oh, isn't it true that the captain always goes down with the ship?
Yeah.
And then he throws the captain off the ship. So the captain didn't go down with the ship.
Right.
Yeah. But anyway, so that's about half an hour of the movie. So yeah, a lot happens in that half an hour.
Yeah.
Oh, and he put leeches on himself too before.
Oh, yeah.
That's another thing.
What the fuck is that about?
they really had to solidify the fact that Willem Dafoe is a scary, crazy man. Yeah, which it's not that hard to do with Willem Dafoe. All he has to do is just be Willem Dafoe in a movie, and you got it. But for whatever reason, Jean Dubont decided to go the extra mile and have this really, actually, pretty scary scene, in my opinion, of him taking leeches out of a jar and putting them on his body and saying, oh, it feels so good, and all this stuff, and like being weird. Like it's like, oh man, this is wild.
Like there was an explanation at one point, but I don't remember what it was. So
I think it was supposed to help. He was either sick and it helped with that, or that like because he poisons the cruise ship at one point. I think it may help with the poison that he was using, or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, they do eventually explain why he puts the leeches on, but it happens kind of out of nowhere without any context, and you don't find out why he's putting leeches on himself for a good portion of the movie.
Yeah,
you know,
it's just another throwaway line.
Yep, another throwaway line. They explained it in.
Another throwaway line, another throwaway scene that could have probably easily been taken out of the movie, and it wouldn't really have affected the plot whatsoever. And let's see. So yeah, Jason Patric gets seasick. So they're in the hotel room. Oh, and that's another thing. They're watching Lolita. So that kind of further solidifies the Jason Patric there.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. But anyway,
I didn't
go on.
That, yeah.
Okay. After remotely shutting down the ship's engines, Geiger calls the bridge to tell the first officer, Juliano, that Pollard is dead and he is in charge. Juliano is ordered by Geiger to evacuate the ship. Meanwhile, Geiger steals jewelry from the ship's vault as passengers evacuate.
Okay, so
I had a question with that. Was why were all those jewels on a cruise ship?
Yeah. Because at that dinner they like showcase them all walking around to people while they're eating.
What the fuck kind of cruise was that?
Yeah.
I'm guessing that maybe somebody who was like a sponsor of the cruise ship decided to kind of use the cruise line as an opportunity to kind of maybe showcase like their jewelry line, or maybe it's like exclusive before like being put in some kind of museum or something. I don't know. It really, they don't really like elaborate on it. They kind of just
Were cruise ships more fancy in the 90s? Maybe. Because now it's just like party ships.
Yeah, I don't know. Water slides and shit all over them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is when Alex ends up kind of launching into hero mode. And he immediately pretty much, actually he catches on to what's happening pretty fast. He's a smart guy. And he immediately pretty much gets on top of evacuating as many people as he can. And so then you have that sequence, which was actually kind of a cool sequence, although it could have been more tightly edited, I will admit, but whatever. Where they're lowering the passengers down into the lifeboat, and it was a pretty intense scene. But the setup was a little overly elaborate because they had to kind of explain everything that they were doing in the midst of while they were doing it, and it kept on cutting back and forth between what Willem Dafoe was doing and what Sandra Bullock was doing and what Jason Patrick was doing and what the deaf girl was doing and all this other stuff, and then eventually, like, once they start lowering the boats down, shit gets kind of chaotic. Jason Patrick ends up having to sort of take control because the members of the crew are pretty much in over their head because they probably weren't expecting a mad bomber to be on board, of course. A couple passengers end up dying.
What's that?
Said something, sorry.
I just said they weren't trained for it. Yeah.
Yeah. A couple passengers end up dying in the process, but they managed to.
Oh yeah. With that, it was like so they were escaping on the life rafts, and the parents of the deaf girl said, like, the mom was super adamant that she wasn't being saved. The other people, which she was right, but the other people were just saying, we got to get off, she's probably on another one of the rafts, and she's the one that got people killed because she was freaking out, started trying to jump off of the raft, and it was got all unbalanced, and she got people killed.
Yeah, basically. I mean, I think part of the reason why the deaf girl was the only character I liked was because I hated her parents so much that I just kind of felt bad for her,
Yeah.
Because, like, every single time they talked to her, they were literally just yelling at her.
Yeah, more rich people being assholes.
Exactly. Which, yeah, I mean, it wasn't as obnoxious as Swept Away, but still, definitely not a lot of likable rich people on this boat. So, okay, so once they get past that, then what happens? I forget.
So the deaf girl gets trapped in the elevator, and a group of people become trapped behind locked doors in a hallway filling with smoke. As Annie and Alex attempt to board the lifeboat, Geiger programs the ship to continue sailing. Winch in a lifeboat jams. Alex jumps onto the boat to rescue the passengers.
That was funny as shit. Down there because it was so dumb. Jump was like in slow motion and shit.
Yeah. And admittedly, like, he was taking a hell of a risk by doing that because it really was not a safe thing to do. Like, he could have killed people by doing that. And it's actually kind of a miracle that ended up working out.
Wasn't it like raining and shit too, or was I just imagining that or something?
No, it was totally raining.
Like,
how you could actually.
He had like a small thing to grip onto or some shit too. It's like, damn.
Yeah, I guess he somehow knew how to land in a way that was balanced enough that it didn't end up killing anyone. Maybe he's just really aerodynamic.
And I also remembered, well, they were just complaining not too long ago about everyone having to keep balanced, and this guy jumping onto a fucking one they don't seem to care about now.
Yeah, I guess maybe it's because he was jumping into the center of it. I don't know. I really, like, there are moments where you do kind of have to reach a little bit because it's just, you're not given a whole lot. I mean, not much to work with. So.
Yeah, and you got the photographer guy moving all around too.
Yeah. Yeah. And Tamir Morrison, who actor, and who we've seen on this show before because he was in that Blueberry movie that I made us watch. I think most people know him as the guy who played Boba Fett in one of the Star Wars prequels.
And he's currently playing him in Mandalorian.
Yeah, he's a wonderful actor. He's very, very, very talented. He's really good in, like, Once We're Warriors and stuff like that. And he actually does a pretty good job in this movie too, even though he's not really given much to do. So
Yeah. Alex realizes Geiger is controlling the ship. Armed with skeet guns, he goes with Juliano to Geiger's cabin, where he remotely detonates explosives inside the room.
mm.
Annie and Dante, the ship's photographer, notice people trapped behind the fire doors. Annie uses a chainsaw to cut the door open and let them out.
Oh
Yeah.
that was dumb as
That
fuck.
was a funny little scene.
Yeah.
I was hoping she would end up accidentally chainsawing one of their arms off, but
Yeah.
She
no luck
almost
there.
did.
Yeah.
She almost did. She was like holding it in the door, saying, "Come on, get out, get out!" And they were like, "Move the chainsaw." What?
Yeah, but
What? Huh? She couldn't hear over the chainsaw. It's like, "Come on!" Like a stupid little comedy scene of her being a dumbass.
yeah, but unfortunately, no gore. Unlike the first movie, which was an R, this is just a PG-13.
Yeah.
I can see that. This is goofy as fuck.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, Alex orders the navigator, Merced, to flood the ship and slow it down by opening the ballast doors.
Yeah.
As the ship floods, Alex sees Drew on a monitor after she climbs out of the elevator and runs
Yeah.
to save her.
I like that scene. That was a scene I did like, I gotta say.
Well,
Only
it was-
because like it was genuinely suspenseful. And then also the scene that happened after that with the grenade was really like, I thought that was really cool too. So
when he saved the deaf girl.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That was, yeah, the save the cat scene.
yeah.
My favorite.
Yeah.
Because they don't, honestly, up until this point, he really wasn't that great of a guy. He was kind of douchey and arrogant. And I mean, he was doing well with, you know, beating people up and shit, but he was kind of an asshole.
Yeah. I mean, I think I got the impression that it was like a fish out of water thing where he was like this authority, like, daredevil type of guy. Okay, that's the reason why it would have just made more sense to just cast Keanu Reeves in this movie, because this guy is more or less the same type of person.
Yeah.
Like, he does the same sort of stupid, death-defying things that are just completely insane that no sane person would do. And yeah, and so I got the impression that the Jason Patric character was like out of his element, which is why he was a kind of a major prick. I mean, not to excuse his behavior, but that's my guess. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, I assume it was probably like a contract. I bet they wanted Keanu. He just didn't do
Yeah.
it.
They should have. Maybe he was too busy with like whatever he was doing in 1997. Like, I don't know, Devil's Advocate or something.
Alex notices Geiger leaving the vault and holds him up at gunpoint, but he escapes by closing the fire door in front of him. Using the ship's intercom, Geiger explains that he designed the ship's autopilot system and is taking revenge against the cruise line after being fired when he contracted copper poisoning.
Okay.
Maybe is that the reason for the leeches,
So,
the copper
I
poisoning?
think so.
yeah, but really, it wasn't even necessary to show the leeches. Like, they could have established that he was like a victim of whatever, like in a number of other different ways. Like, it's just interesting that they show the medicinal aspect before they even give the reason why he was doing it in the first place. Just
Yeah.
So.
Geiger again escapes from Alex by attaching a grenade to a door, which we already mentioned.
This is my favorite scene in the movie. So there's this grenade that's kind of lodged in the handle, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's it's like taped around the door with the thingy open.
Pin and shit and whatever, yeah. You open the door, the pin will pop and blow everyone.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, that was a cool setup. And I like the way they did that. I think Sandra Bullock, she didn't really she was more or less playing the same character that she was playing in the original, except in this movie, she didn't really seem anywhere near as frightened. You know, in this movie, she seemed more like annoyed, like, oh no, this is happening again. Oh
Yep.
no,
Yeah.
like, and that's kind. Whereas in the first movie, like there were moments where she was and panicking. There's a scene where they run over the baby carriage and she thinks that she just killed the baby. And there's a scene where she's like handcuffed in the subway and she's trying to get the handcuffs off and she starts crying. Like there's so many scenes in the original movie where she actually emotes. And in this movie, she doesn't, like, at all. The most emoting does in this is at like the very, very end when she says, oh, for a second there, oh, I thought I was a goner. Like that's the most she does as far as emoting.
Yep. Okay, so the crew noticed that Geiger has set the ship to crash into an oil tanker off the coast of St. Martin. Alex decides to stop the ship by diving underneath it and jamming the propeller with a steel cable.
Yeah, which initially works.
Yeah, and he survives after they killed a bunch of people off the same way
Yeah.
earlier in the movie.
Plot
Yeah.
that plot armor.
I guess somehow he just is really, really good at swimming against the propeller tides.
Geiger realizes
Question
Alex.
Morrison. Oh,
What's that?
I was also going to mention somewhere in the midst of all this chaos, Tamora Morrison's arm gets broken.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, but go on.
Okay. Geiger realizes Alex is trying to stop the ship, so he jams the cable winch while Alex is underwater, causing it to break off the ship and free the cable. I think that's when his arm broke.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
The Geiger takes Annie hostage and escapes with her on a boat from the ship's stern.
Mm-hmm. And he also pushes Tamora Morrison off the ship, which should have killed him.
Yeah.
Actually, like, how did he even? I mean, I guess. Well, I Alex ends up rescuing him like he does everybody else. So I guess it makes sense. But he should have died in that moment. You know, and actually probably. Oh yeah.
Especially with one arm.
Yeah. Which clearly broken. Like even after he falls into the water, like blood is out. You know. So not only is it like severely broken, like possibly a compound fracture. I mean, it's a PG-13, so of course we don't get any close-ups or anything, but it's clear that whatever happened to him, he's like crippled, basically. Like he's more or less out of operation. So.
Yep. To avoid collision with the oil tanker, Alex and Dante go into the ship's bilge and use the bow thrusters to turn it.
Okay.
This was my favorite scene, actually. I like the turn because they had a little plan going, like, and they set it in motion. There's like not Keanu was like, okay, I'll go down. You wait 15 seconds because they had to, because it was like, I don't know, manual rudder controls or something was what I gathered.
Yeah.
So they couldn't turn them both at the same time or it wouldn't really work. So they had to, synchronize spinning it so they could basically sideswipe they more or less scrape the barnacles off of both the cruise ship and the oil tanker thing.
Yeah, I actually thought the scene was quite terrifying. Because, like, you see, okay, so that's a good way to do suspense, because if you have to do it one at a time, that means that you can only do it so quickly. So even if you know what you're doing, there's still no sure thing that you're going to actually be able to pull this off, because you can only like go so fast, but if you go too fast, then there's no way you'll succeed, so it's almost like they have to take their time. They're forced their time in order to avoid an oil tanker, and that was a good idea. That and the way they shot the scene and stuff was effective, because they kept on cutting back to what was happening on the oil tanker and the way the people on the ship were reacting, and how it's like, okay, like what the hell are we going to do? We can't evacuate yet because there's nobody here, and there's like less than 10 minutes before they hit us. So like, what the hell is going on? And then also it shows what's happening with the passengers as well, because they're not oblivious to all this stuff as well, because they can see right out the window this
Right.
giant, massive oil tanker that you just know as soon as they hit that, it's like going to be, you know, nuclear holocaust, Terminator 2 level explosions where everybody just burns to death and gets incinerated and nothing's going to be left.
Especially this
So
budget.
yeah, that was a terrifying scene, and I liked the way they did that, I gotta say. So yeah.
The ship screeches down the side of the tanker, but manages to withstand the damage and head straight into a marina.
And,
It-
yep. And so here I thought the movie was over.
yeah,
Like, because A, it was long. B, they survived that collision. And then they're like, yay, yay, yay.
Yeah.
And then it showed, oh no, oh no. And it showed just like the marina with all these boats and
Yeah.
people and shit. And I was just, and then I
Oh,
checked
yeah.
the time. Oh, 30 more minutes. Okay, fuck.
Yeah. And I gotta say, I love how they cut to at least 4 or 5 people, one after the other, saying, "Oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit."
yeah, that was unnecessary.
And so yeah, then after this, it's about 20 minutes of waiting.
Yeah.
Pretty
And
much.
like when they noticed they're hitting the marina, one thing I laughed at was there was just a random like whatever they wakeboarder or whatever, he just smashed up into the side of the cruise boat. I just
Yeah,
laughed.
he's like,
It was so funny.
yeah. But although my favorite was that one Dowdy, sort of like after they got past some of the surfers and stuff, there was that one that was like failed to kind of steering it away, but they failed to steer it fast enough, and the ship like hits it, and then it just blows up. Like that was my favorite.
Yep.
It just like so.
Yeah,
Needed all the explosions they could get.
Yeah, pretty much. So yeah. Now this whole sequence was really sad because knowing what I know, watching like the making of, and like knowing that they actually built, like, not only did they actually build like a large like front of a ship for this sequence where it's crashing through, where it's literally crashing through the town, but they actually also like built like a lot of like basically just like structures that were intended to be demolished. They built like these structures for the purposes of being filmed in the process of getting demolished by this boat. And so, you know, we're watching this ship like crash through this town and just, you know, cut this giant swath of destruction through all this stuff, but like really not very exciting.
No, because it's a fucking cruise ship going 5 miles an hour through
yeah.
it.
It's like that scene in Austin Powers with the steamrollers just going slowly at the guy.
Yeah.
Yes.
The most you can do in this scene is show the ship smashing through stuff, blowing stuff up, you know, like smashing, you know, buildings and telephone and like crushing cars and all this stuff. 2 minutes later, cut back to
The dog. You can't forget about the dog getting out of
there's
the
even
way.
a moment, yeah, there's even a false alarm moment where a dog almost dies, and all this crazy, and there's even a scene where a cute little boy is staring out a window at this ship, you know, that's
Mommy, the
about to
ship.
crush everybody,
Yeah,
and
he's like,
everybody's
"Mommy, the
ignoring him,
ship."
like, oh,
Yep,
oh,
there's
he's just-
ships out there. Yeah.
he's just being a weird kid talking about boats, you know, totally oblivious to the fact that there's like a ship that's, you know, less than a mile away and heading right toward them.
And then it
The most
destroys the whole buildings.
Yeah, not only does it destroy it, it like causes it to completely the sides to like collapse like all over the ship, and so they have to deal with falling debris as well. I mean, stuff is falling everywhere, stuff is blowing up, and then every 2 minutes it cuts to the guy in the ship saying seven left, 6 left. And he's like,
Yeah.
it does that every 2 minutes. And I'm just sitting here watching all this destruction happening, and then occasionally cutting back to the ship slowing down slightly more. And it just goes on forever.
Mhm.
Like, it's so long.
And
Yep.
dumb.
And then eventually, well, you can say what happened.
It then crashes into St. Martin and eventually stops.
Yeah.
Alex jumps off, hijacks a speedboat, and pursues Geiger to a seaplane. Which the speedboat guy was the same guy Keanu Reeves stole the car from in the first one.
Yeah, that's why I mentioned him when I was giving the summary, like, because Keanu Reeves hijacks the luxury vehicle in the first film in order to catch up to the bus. In this movie, the same guy happens to be in the Caribbean, although this time he has a lady friend, and Jason Patrick does the exact same thing. So this guy manages to be in two. He manages to somehow be involved in some capacity with this disastrous situation involving a mad bomber that also involves Sandra Bullock's character. That's pretty bad luck, in my opinion.
Yeah. Also the same guy was in Showgirls.
Yep. Everybody got AIDS and shit.
Okay. Alex shoots the seaplane from the boat with a spear gun and reels himself in through the water.
Oh yeah. That's dumb too.
This whole
Possible,
sequence
but-
was
Lots of far-fetched things going on in this at this point. Like,
yeah. He climbs onto the plane and rescues Annie, and both escape from the plane on one of its floats, which falls into the ocean.
yeah.
Geiger then attempts to fly over the oil tanker, but the plane becomes impaled on the ship's foremast, causing both to explode.
Yeah.
Which,
After he giggles and laughs like an evil maniacal guy. What?
Yeah.
yeah, when it got impaled, that was ridiculous.
That looked so stupid.
Yeah.
They thought it looked so cool, and it looked so stupid.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, then one other thing happens. This is like the big budget moment. They actually did this, by the way. They actually spent the money and did this part too. Go ahead.
The tanker crew, however, are saved, having launched their lifeboat just in time, leaving Geiger to perish in the resulting fireball alone.
Yeah. Massive explosion.
Yeah.
Which actually looked like, pretty cool. I mean, it would have been cooler if it had happened like under more interesting circumstances, because like Willem Dafoe like landing on top of like a spike and then laughing and blowing up, like that just made it kind of silly.
They could have even like redid what they did in the first one when they transferred between buses and the bus blew up the plane. They should have just did that with the boats. Had the boat actually go into the tanker, but
that would have been awesome, because then the boat would have gotten blown up,
Yeah, and the marina would have been saved.
Yeah, but oh well. So and then go on.
Annie and Alex travel back to shore in the speedboat, and he gives her an engagement ring, which he was trying to give her the whole movie, and asking her if she will wear this for a while, and she accepts. End of the Wikipedia plot summary.
End of the movie.
Yeah. And that's it. So
Yeah.
So this was I will go as far as saying that it isn't horrible. I think personally, my opinion is the reason it's on the bottom 100 is because it's the sequel to an action movie that is actually considered like really, really good. It's a sequel to a popular action movie, that can't live up to the high bar that the first film had already set. That's why this film is on the bottom 100, because like not only can it not live up to it, but it falls significantly short of the quality of the first film. But having said that, like I didn't think it was that bad.
Yeah.
I just
I don't think
the problem. Oh yeah.
I was gonna say I don't think it deserves its spot on the list, but
Yeah. I think the first half of the film, like there's a lot of slow moments in it in the first half, and there's a lot of unnecessary moments, but for the most part, like it's not badly done, you know, like generally speaking, like as far as like the story. When you get to the second half of the film, that's when you start running into the more significant problems, you know, like the logistical issues, which we've kind of been sort of pointing out. There's a lot more of them in the second half of the movie. And then you got the fact that it's a cruise ship, like you keep saying, like it's really hard to generate suspense with a cruise ship.
Okay, so I do have a thing too, because I just wanted to look up. I did a quick Google. Why wasn't Keanu Reeves in this? And he was supposed to be, actually. It says here, Reeves appeared on Jimmy Kimmel Live in the U.S. and talked about the Speed sequel. I didn't get to be in that, he recalled, adding, well, I decided not to be in that. I loved working with Jean de Bont and Sandra, of course. It was just a situation of life where I got the script, I read the script, and I was like, ugh. It was about a cruise ship, and I was thinking, a bus, a cruise ship, speed, bus. But then a cruise ship is even slower than a bus, and I was like, I love you guys, but I just can't do it.
Okay.
So
All
he got the script and was like, no, this is gonna be fucking dumb. good for Keanu.
Okay. Yeah. That makes sense. You know, I think that was a smart choice ultimately. I do think he could have improved the movie significantly though, because
Yeah,
you know,
of course, but he made the right decision, I feel, overall.
yeah.
Yeah. Jason Patrick, he's not a bad actor by any means, but he's just not. This isn't the material for him. I think that it was just not really the best kind of casting that they could have done. And Jean de Bont is clearly talented as a filmmaker. He's also the director of Twister, which I would actually argue is an even dumber movie than one. But and also he was the cinematographer for Die Hard, and he was also the cinematographer for like a lot of early like Paul Verhoeven films and stuff like that. So he definitely like is a talented guy, and he definitely knows his way around a camera and around like pyrotechnics and set pieces and all that stuff. But this is just it's not a bad film. It's just a weak film, I think, ultimately. And I think it's kind of sad that it's a weak film because of how much money was spent on it. You know, it's a bummer when a big budget film ends up being a kind of a disaster, but it happens. So
Yep. What would you guys give it?
Not high. I was real bored with it. I'd give it like another 1.5 probably, because it was just way too slow.
yeah.
And goofy. I didn't like the goofiness it had. It was like,
Yeah.
none of the jokes they were trying landed at all. Like zero of them.
Yeah.
Except for there was that one like scene where the passengers were were getting gassed, and they all started stripping to like cover the like the cracks under the doors and shit. And like one of the main, like, I don't know, one of the main passengers that you see throughout the movie, I thought he was pretty funny. He was like telling the ladies, come on, strip. Why aren't you stripping? And she was like, oh, because I don't have any underwear on. And he's like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you know, there were some moments where they were trying for some humor. It's just
Yeah, and I wrote he had
yeah.
a big woman joke, something about the big woman having more clothes or something to use. It's like,
Yeah. Yeah. I give it a 2. I want to say it's a good movie, but I honestly can't. I think it's better than its reputation suggests. I'd say that as far as like being the type of movie it is, it wouldn't really be like bad, and I would recommend it like to people who like dumb action movies, except that like the just the sheer length of it is just that really is a big problem. You know, because like it's one thing to have a dumb action movie, but it's another thing to have a dumb action movie that happens to like be like slow paced
Yeah,
and like doesn't
exactly,
really
yes.
have a good sense of momentum, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Because like even though like you do have a lot of really cool action set pieces in this movie, and you even have some really effective scenes with some cool ideas and some clever concepts, they're bookmarked in between a lot of just clunky exposition that doesn't really work, and a lot of just unnecessary filler that never really quite clicks ultimately. It's not horrible. Like I said, I wouldn't even call it bad. It's just not good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was I gave it a 2 as well. I mean, it's basically your typical cheesy 90s action movie. Like those aren't on bottom 100, so I don't know.
Yeah.
Like you
Like I
said,
said, I think. Oh yeah.
like you said, it's a sequel to a great movie. So
Yeah. Exactly. And like, I guess like if I were to compare this, I mean, because you look at the first Die Hard movie, and I mean, that movie has like 4 sequels, and some of those sequels are absolutely atrocious. But the second Die Hard movie, not as good as the first film. The first film set the bar really, really high. The second film doesn't live up to the first film, but the second film at least has the courtesy of being like at least as well paced as the first film is. The second film at least has the courtesy of not having so much like clunky exposition and filler and additional characters that add little to nothing to the plot and like all this other stuff. You know, there's not a whole lot of unnecessary stuff going on in the second Die Hard movie. It's just not as good as the first film, you know. So I think a lot of the reason why people hate the second Speed movie is just because there's just way too much unnecessary stuff in it that doesn't work. So
yep.
Yeah,
I guess does that pretty much sum it up, or
I think so.
Yeah.
cool. All right. Well, this was a pretty epic review, you know. So you know, I hope that it reflects the movie, you know, pretty well. I think we did a pretty good job, sort of pretty comprehensive, sort of covering almost everything that happened in it. I mean, there was a lot that happened in it, so it's impossible to really cover everything. So it's like a novel worth of plot. It's like, jeez, like, what is this, Tom Clancy?
Hi. Glad it's
Anyway,
over.
yeah. Anyway, anyway, until next time. Peace out.
Yeah.
See you later.
See ya.
Bye. Whew, I'm out of breath. Didn't realize there was so much to talk about.
Right.